a few more, another half minute or so before we get going.
Nice.
Okay, we're 1 minute past. I think now's a good time to start. So thank you all for hopping onto this webinar this afternoon. My name's Annabel Sedgwick. I'm the Managing Director of KDM Communications, but I also wear a SAMPS hat. I'm on the board of the SAMPS team. And we are delighted to bring to you this afternoon a webinar to kick off our 2025 series with some wonderful contributors. We've got Adam behind the scenes doing all the tech, so making the webinar happen from a technical point of view. He's a fellow board member, so thank you, Adam SmartScan. And then we've got Ian Birkby, the founder and CEO of AZoNetwork, who many of you will know. Thank you for joining in. It's 2 a.m. for Ian. He's joining from Australia, so so we have to explain to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, Ian. We've got Rob D'Angelo. He's Vice President of LabX Media Group. So great to see you, Rob.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon.
Joining from the stateside, so another continent. And then we've got Harrison Waid, the founder and CEO of Succession Bio. So great to see you, Harrison, joining us from London.
Yeah, got all 3 different continents covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
So I just want to tell you a little bit about SAMPS before we get stuck into the topic for today. So SAMPS stands for Sales and Marketing Professionals in Science. I'm guessing that quite a few of you on the webinar will be familiar with it because you've probably joined up as members in order to tap into the webinar. But we're an entirely volunteer-run group of people, sales and marketing professionals ourselves, in the life science community and spanning quite a lot of scientific industries. We've been going for 12, 13 years, since 2012. And really, we're here to support sales and marketing professionals with their career development, upskilling them, monitoring what's new in the sales and marketing workplace, what we can tap into to upskill, what we can learn from each other, network, introduce each other, and so on. So the group spans not just professionals that work for the companies, but also a lot of the support. So the agencies, the publishers, the media, CROs, and so on and so forth. So do please join the community and encourage your colleagues to do so if they're not already members. I've got a couple of announcements around SAMPS that I'll talk about at the end of this conversation. So really, I want to kick off and start off by opening the conversation with what the panelists here feel has worked from a sales and marketing perspective in 2024 and why. So can I have a volunteer to kick off?
I'll jump in. Might
Go
as
on,
well.
Rob. Thank you. I will just say also, please feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go. This isn't a one-way street webinar. We really want your contributions and conversation as well. So if you've got burning questions to ask any of the panelists, please put them in the chat and we will endeavour to make sure that they are covered. Sorry, off you go,
No,
Rob.
that sounds good. So yeah, I'm Rob D'Angelo at LabX Media Group. And so as a publisher, we have two we have two customers, right? We have the reader, the subscriber, right? That's a customer, and then we have our paying customer, our advertiser. So we're trying to do our best to fulfill needs on both sides. But from a reader perspective, right, a subscriber perspective, one of the things that worked really well in 2024 for us as a publisher are newsletters, right? So we've gone through the gamut of doing newsletters and putting as much information in there and blasting it out to as many people as we can. But over the years, we've actually really sort of focused on what's the best impact of developing a newsletter. And the thing that we came down to, which is great, is topic-specific newsletters, right? Topic-specific, also with the right audience, right? The right subscriber. So over a lot of years of trials and tribulations, that seems to resonate really well, right? So in the life science industry, it's a very fragmented audience, and everyone's really only interested in their scientific discipline, and they're interested in everything, but that scientific discipline that they're focusing in on, in the labs, et cetera. So topic specific newsletters work well. They're very engaging. They resonate well. And again, the audience that it's delivered to, if it's the right audience, right, the right demographics, works really well. So good content delivered, topic specific to the right audience, resonates really strongly, and it's good for an advertiser, right? Our other customer is the advertiser, the sponsor. So I think they really get a good, strong investment out of topic specific newsletters.
Okay, and it's a relatively cost-effective thing to do as well, I'm guessing.
Pardon?
It's a relatively cost-effective exercise as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? So we've done that too with pricing. Again, we've only been doing this as a publisher for a short 10 years, right? 10 years ago, we didn't have newsletters, or that was the very start of them, and going out and meeting with our paying customers, our marketers, and educating them. This is a newsletter. It's different than a print publication. It's different than a website. It's different than an email blast, right? It's a newsletter that's topic specific. So it works really well with both.
Harrison, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to ask a question about that because I've also seen newsletters work really well, but I was going to ask you about topics specific to newsletters because a lot of companies do newsletters, I would say, not very well. They all become like a jumble of like, hey, here's our product releases that we put out. Here's our content that we've already written. It becomes like this brochure of their content, which like I wouldn't necessarily say is maybe like the most impactful type of newsletter that people want to subscribe to. We all get a lot of emails anyway. So when you think about topics, how do you think about topics to where it doesn't end up being like the company's product becoming the thing that they want to talk about the whole time?
Yeah, great question. And again, from the publishing perspective, we get that a lot, right? So a big part of good journalism, high quality journalism, is the objectivity of your content that you're delivering, right? That you're writing. So part of our news, one of the ways that we wanted to set our newsletters apart is original content. And original content is extremely important, right? For obvious reasons. And I work with an incredibly talented editorial content development team at LabX Media Group, but we do survey our subscribers, right? Our customer's customer, the paying. We do survey them and look to see what's hot, what's not, what trends are happening. So in terms of crafting, a good content, we're always looking to see what reading needs, what's important, what's hot, what's not hot, et cetera, and get into those topics. But again, it's original content.
Yeah, like from a subject matter expert, right? Basically, you need an in-house expert in some capacity to help write this.
Yeah, because the reader is our customer, right? So we're building a trust with them, and it takes time, energy, effort. And if you have 10 things and you do 9 things right with trust, and you do one thing wrong, to get that trust back with the reader is it's almost impossible. So it's a great question. Thanks.
So Ian, you've just published a report around trends in 2024 and what's worked. Did email marketing come up in that as something that is a bit of a go-to?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. I often describe it, it's a bit like the cockroach of the internet. It just won't die, a bit like Rob. I would agree with everything that Rob said, actually. And as a business ourselves, we send out something like a million emails a week across about 150 different subject areas, and we've been doing it for quite a long period of time. So that's given us a lot of data to be able to analyze what works and what doesn't. And we crunch a lot of data on things like subject lines and what particular words, and just to sort of share with you an example, that the use of the word application, I'm just looking at the data on the other screen, is about 120% more effective than having application note in there, which is 18% less effective than on average. So there's a lot of subtleties that go into it. And I would say to anybody who is doing email newsletters, crunching the data on your performance is a big thing. And to Harrison's comment, probably the worst thing that you can do is try and stuff product down your audience's face straight away. You know, the audience is on a journey from I want to know about a technology through I want to understand how it operates through to actually I'm ready to buy now. So, and I think the stat is something like 3% of people are ready to buy at any one moment in time. So, you know, you've got to think about that awareness and the funnel. So I would say, yeah, the newsletter side is incredibly important, and I would encourage everybody to do it. What also works is content still works in all of its various forms. However, it needs to be unique, timely, relevant. Churning out stuff that you know, is regurgitation, that's not going to go very far. A lot of discovery on the web now is going to be covered by AI, so you've got to have that originality angle as well with regards to your content. Yeah.
So what kind of calls to action have you guys seen work well in email marketing? Because it's all very well sending an email, whether it's a newsletter or some other kind of product announcement or something, but you want to get something back. You want people to interact with that email. So what do you see as working well?
Give them something. I like giving things, which is like give away content in your content, right? So if you have, and I think when I think of giving away content, it's not giving away, you know, maybe even like a white paper or publications or things of that nature that they can go find elsewhere. So what sort of content is super unique that only you can create for your company that's going to help that person accomplish whatever they want to get done more effectively? It's kind of vague to say because obviously it's going to be different depending on who your target audience is, but find a couple of things where you can create like different like cheat sheets, templates, protocols, whatever it might be that you can basically give to your audience for free. Don't put it behind a paywall. Don't put it behind an email, right? But like give it to them, and then in kind, you will start to see some of those people come inbound, when that stuff's top of mind.
Yeah.
I'd agree totally, and you know, subject lines that have got in words like read, download, free. Strangely enough, Harrison, that always seems to be more of a positive contributor than a negative. So it's good quality content, and I think we all know we've probably all got areas on the web that we go to where we've got confidence that organization, I'm willing to give you my details because you're going to give me back something that's quality, that's going to be useful to me in my day job. So establishing that trust level and not trying to spam people too much, you know, give away quality content is a good mantra.
Okay, it's a fine line between giving content of value and having people feeling like they're being a bit spammed.
It all depends on, you know, the type of thing that you want to give away, right? In terms of call to action. But I don't think we're going to talk about this, but like when you go to a conference, right? So that's one of the things that came to mind. A conference, like what giveaways, you know, to most attendees like. I mean, you know, we've all been to conferences. You know, coffee, a cup of coffee is like still generates, you know, like the number one. That lines, you know, down the block where you have your life research scientists, you know, they want a cup of coffee, right? But to get a cup of coffee, you have to give you demographic information, et cetera, and figure it out. But it all depends, right? It all depends, you know, in terms of what works and what's effective. I think it varies depending upon the type of, you know, product or project that, you know, you're looking at, you're delivering.
So is there anything else that you guys feel has worked really well in the last 12 months that's worth discussing?
LinkedIn content
okay.
LinkedIn content from a person, from a human being, not from a brand, not from the company page. If you can get somebody to, you know, be a voice for your customer, but have it be an individual, you're just gonna get better reach. People trust people, more likely to listen to that content. I've seen tons of people recently in life sciences start to build relatively large audiences, like tens of thousands of people. I mean, probably a mix of if they're all in their ICP, probably not. But you know, they've built up relatively big followings to the point where if they post something, or over the course of posts of a couple of months, like you're going to get hundreds of thousands of impressions that it's just feasibly not possible unless you're paying ads for your sponsored ads for your company page. So if you can find an individual to be that person for you, it's huge. It's frankly the only way we've grown our company is like through LinkedIn content.
Yeah.
Relationships like this start to come from that LinkedIn content. So there's all sorts of like intangibles that you probably can't measure directly from like a quote unquote marketing spend perspective. But these things are super important because that's just where people are and they're consuming that content.
So that's an interesting concept because from the point of view of corporate control, if you like, this is about an individual expanding their own network, having that kind of their stamp of individuality aligned with your company brand. And there's risk associated with that, right? It's a little bit out of control of the sales director or the commercial team.
Good. Get out of the
Yeah.
that's my thought is good. Get out of that same sort of mindset. Let the people put stuff out there, see what resonates. And then from that, like you're gonna have tons of new ideas. You're gonna unlock the creativity of your team and then take those insights and that learning and apply it to your marketing effort. Rather than saying, here's like all our marketing stuff in a straight line, you have to follow this, here's the LinkedIn post, you have to post this. And it's this sort of like sterile type of content a lot of the time. Nobody likes that stuff. So if you can unlock the creativity of your team and put them out there, have stuff that stands out, I think that's really where a lot of power is going to come from like organic content.
I agree. I'm sorry, Ian, you go.
Oh, thanks, Robbie. Yeah, I support what you're saying there, Harris. And I think up to a point, please can we not have any more pictures of people at exhibitions on LinkedIn? Maybe that one could go. But I think it comes back to that unique, relevant content. And if you've got somebody within your team who is a subject expert, let them build their own brand. That's great, And if you're saying part of the risk is, well, they'll build their own brand and they might move on, that's okay. That's part of the ecosystem. That's life. It's your challenge to look after your people and hopefully they want to stay and continue to develop their brand as well as your brand alongside.
Yeah, and if those people are good at brand building themselves, you just want to hang on to them, don't you? They're going to be worth their weight in gold, aren't they? Fantastic.
Yeah, and just lastly, I mean, again, from the publisher's perspective, I agree, Harrison, with everything. Creativity is like the biggest thing in today's day and age. But on the publishing perspective, what we've learned, it's not necessarily, just creating the best content, the best original content. That it's gone beyond that, right? So you have all of these plethora of platforms, right, that you need to understand and how researchers and how people are, interacting with those platforms and then adapting that content, that high quality, but adapting to the platform. So if it's LinkedIn, that's one thing, right? TikTok, everyone, obviously that's in the news, but that's a whole totally different platform, right? So from a publisher, we're learning literally every day, and what is best to put in front of, a reader, subscriber based upon the platform that they're interacting with. So that's key.
Yeah. 100%.
So we've got some questions that have come up in the chat already. So can we provide tips about customer-centric content creation that life science tool providers can use when creating their own newsletters? So what kind of customer-centric content could they create?
Ask them.
Ask them, yeah.
I mean, find out, like Rob mentioned, they can do surveys of like your potential customers. Great. Hire Rob, have them go do those surveys, find out what your customers want, and then make the content for them. I think so often people just sit in their own companies and they all talk amongst each other and they all think about what our customers want. And it's this like internal discussion that never has any external validation around it. And so you make stuff and you put it out into the void and people hear it, they like it, they don't, you just don't really know until you've already done it. So I'd say first, go figure out what that content strategy is going to look like. What do your customers care about? And then make that type of content.
Yeah,
I'd add to that, and I think that's a very good idea, which I'd support. But I think also have a look at your analytics. What sort of content are people looking at? What are the Google trends with regards to your particular activities? I mean, we're lucky we get millions of people a month, so it's easy for us to spot trends. But even with smaller individual manufacturers, there's still going to be nuggets of gold within your analytics and within your data that will be pointing where the money's flowing in that
So
respect.
we've got a really interesting here in the chat. Are there any activities that haven't worked quite so well over the last 12 months? And how did you adapt? So anything that you would say is, do you know what, this didn't work too well, and maybe avoid doing this in 2025 and flex and maybe go down this route instead?
Yeah.
I got one. Cold outbound with templated sequences. That's dead. Don't ever
Okay.
do that. Stop doing that, because that is going to kill your domain from an email deliverability perspective faster
Yeah.
than anything right now.
Yeah.
The way, like, there's so many ways that you can do personalized emails at scale to your audience using like different automation tools and different AI integrations, that I would look heavily into that process to figure out, if I have a list of 1,000 ideal customers that I want to get in front of, how can I write hyper personalized targeted messages to those people?
Yeah.
There are ways that you can do it at scale, but I would absolutely avoid sending templated emails from your main domain, because like we do a lot of this for our clients, and if you're sending a lot of emails that are sales related from your main domain, it could be one of the fastest ways to get blocked as spam, and then that's going to affect client communications. There's a whole bunch of downsides that come with that.
Yeah.
So just a lot of things to consider there, but
So if you use a marketing automation platform, can the same thing happen though, Harrison?
so marketing is a little bit different. So like if you're doing marketing email, these people have opted in. So I would say it's a different sort
Okay.
of outreach.
Yeah.
I'm more talking about like sales prospecting outreach,
Okay.
where you have a target list, they're outside of your marketing
Mm-hmm.
database, and you're trying to get meetings with them because you know they're a potential fit.
Sure.
The old way was, I've got a sequence that I'm going to put together in SalesLoft, Outreach, Apollo, whatever, and it's got 17 touches over the course of whatever, 6 months, and they're all basically the same thing, and they're all automated. And I'm going to go roll these people up into sequences or cadences and send these messages out. And so that is going to be one, the first way to like just burn your domain. And then
Mm-hmm.
secondly, it just doesn't really work anymore. You really
Yeah.
have to figure out how do you stand out in the inbox. We talked about email marketing, right? Same thing goes for like prospecting. It's like you have to figure out how to stand out as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd agree with Harrison on that one. I think I was sort of struggling to think of something until Harrison touched on that. He's absolutely right. Cold outreach is a big challenge these days, and it's a lot of work for limited return. I think it's great in this day and age that people still buy people, and having meetings with actual people is terrific. And I think we can all spot a mile off when you're in somebody's marketing sequence, and it just doesn't feel original. And we now, using AI tools, we can develop, very, very personalized one-on-one communications that show that that client, what they
Yeah.
do, what they're interested in, and you may be able to show these products are probably of interest to you. So, and as Harrison says, do that at scale. So it always interested me that HubSpot were the founders of inbound marketing, but they had what they used to call the spider monkey room, where they had a group of 20 people on the phone doing cold outreach. So it's I'm not saying it's never worked, but it's certainly very challenging these days.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it still works. I can confirm. Cold outreach does still absolutely work,
Yeah.
but you have to do it the right way, I think, is the key point, right? Yeah.
So what is the right way for cold outreach then, Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think about with cold outreach. Is one, it has to be relevant to that person. And so in order to do that, you have to be able to pull lists of people that have some sort of probably like trigger or something going on within their world that says they might be a good fit for your product or service, right? So there's something that has to be like super relevant. Then you also have to personalize it to them based on that sort of trigger that you've identified. Then you also have to talk about the potential problem that they might be facing because of that trigger event, and then how, in a very short manner, you can solve that problem for them. And you have to do all of this in less than 100 words,
Sure. Okay.
because nobody's going to be reading long messages. And so I think, like, if you think about those core components, it's like relevant, personalized, short, problem oriented. Those are going to be the core things for how you can do that outreach.
So one of the things one of the questions in the chat's quite interesting. So this 3 to 5% of people are in that buying mode. They're ready to make a decision. They're looking to make a decision. 95% of people then are not. So how can we create emails that can resonate, with people, whatever stage of that buying journey they might be, wherever they are in the funnel? What's the trick there?
Well, I'd like to jump in. I don't think there's a trick, but I think you have 95% of a particular target audience that's not ready to buy yet. Years back, there used to be building relationships with prospects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened with the advent of technology, et cetera, everyone has a need for a lead, right? Everyone's looking for that 3 to 4% that are ready to buy right away. But marketing, you're right. 101 dictates, you have to communicate with a prospect at least 3 times, and I think it still holds true today, 3 times before they understand, or you get their attention, or try to get them to elicit some type of action through a call to action. So the other 95% is building a relationship of the company, the product, the service, to get to know them a bit. And I know in today's day and age, everything is fast, it's quick. We want to lead, we want to sell, we get all of that, but there is a need for that traditional building that relationship with a reader, which we do as a publisher. But from a marketing standpoint, the same holds true with proper advertising. So my point is, sometimes it's not just what can we do for an email and get that quick pro quo, as opposed to you have 95% of the readers, et cetera, that aren't in a buying mode yet. But why aren't they? Get to know who they are and why they aren't, et cetera. So it's not a trick, right?
Okay. Just to move the conversation on a bit and look at one of the other questions. What's everybody's view on X these days? Twitter, the old Twitter.
No comment.
Okay.
I think if it works for you as a channel, use it. If it's not working, in general, don't use it. But that's more of just a channel thing in general.
Fine.
Personally,
taking everything out of it with the no comment, right? I read between the lines, Harrison.
Right. Yeah.
I get you. Again, it goes back to what I stated earlier, is that, try to figure out, how a reader, how a customer, et cetera, how they're engaged in that platform, and find out what their activities are and why it's useful and why they're going there, and then try to adapt your content. My suggestion or recommendation wouldn't be you have to look at all the different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I think, right, 95% aren't ready to buy, right? It's 3 to 5, right? So you got to look at all the platforms and figure out a way to communicate, your products and services, right? Your value-added benefits of, et cetera. And then, as Ian mentioned before, the analytics are intense, right? In today's day and age, you got to take a look at those analytics, right? And again, it's not an easy thing to do, right? This is not a quick fix, a magic potion. It takes time, right? You look at the analytics, you're looking at results, et cetera, and then you adapt and you keep going and you keep evolving. So
we've certainly never found Twitter to be hugely successful in terms of having in-depth conversations. It's a reasonable news distribution channel. What's going to happen going forwards? Well, I think a lot of companies are going to have to wrestle with their corporate conscience as to do they want to be seen there, but they're also going to look at the marketing department always has limited resources.
Absolutely.
Where should we place those? And if you take into account the fact that YouTube is pretty much the world's second biggest search engine these days, there's a lot of value in video, in the longer form, the shorter form. We have a mantra that is, in terms of content generation, build it once, distribute many times. So if you've got a really good article, can you turn that article into an interview with one of your thought leaders? Can you then put that out via YouTube as a 5 to 10 minute video? Can you use it as a lot of shorts that can go into some of the other channels? And again, a lot comes down to what's right for your type of product. I don't think there is a one size fits all with regards to social media.
So that lends quite well into the next question around the use of AI to generate content. So I think everyone's in agreement that high value content is gold dust. it's the kind of thing that you want to be sharing with your target audiences. What about using AI to create it or to
Yeah,
help
yeah,
perhaps?
again, from a publishing perspective, AI right now is, I think there's a thing on what's the trend for 2025. Well, artificial AI is, I think is so powerful, and it's going to transform a lot, as we know. But AI is interesting. For email blast, we use AI, to change the subject headings. Right, it's very creative, but AI needs human overview. It needs, we just don't put something together, but you have to look at it, you review it, does it work well, etc. So I think with AI in publishing, it could be a game changer, but I think it's being closely watched for obvious reasons by sort of academic brands out there. It's that they have to, right? It has to, but I think it has a lot of potential to just accelerate the development of content, and then just the analyzation of data sets, of large amounts of data, right? When you look at analytics. So it's a tool right now that's real powerful. And again, on the publishing side, we have it, we look at it, and we're learning every day, actually. It's one of those things where, you got to be careful with it. It's a very powerful, machine, and can't just get into this, 12-cylinder race car and then take it out, right? You gotta respect what it is and learn.
I think you've got to be very careful with regards to content generation and AI.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you start to then get a self-replicating monster that's, generating similar type of stuff, because, LLMs are actually word prediction engines. They're incredibly sophisticated and good at it, but that's what they are. So we're still very nervous about the use of AI with regards to wholesale content creation. By all means, it can help in terms of structuring content and giving you ideas for articles, but I think it's a great thing having humans still putting the finishing touch on there, having that uniqueness and having that trust, with the audience. We're fortunate we've been able to build our own LLM. We call it Athena, which talks to over 1 million pieces of content. But you've got to work out the difference between using AI in your business externally. So are you going to make the customer experience better? Can you get it translating your content to a bigger audience? And internally, how are you going to use AI within your processes? And we've certainly found, if you'd have asked me 18 months ago, I would have said, it's external, it's going to have the big impact. It's actually, so far, I think external is still going to have a big impact, but so far it's internal. It's using AI in all of those foot slogging jobs that, there's a lot of friction in the system. How can we use AI or a multi-agent approach to reduce this process from 1 hour down to 3 minutes? And I think that's where a lot of businesses are going to have quick wins over the next 12 months.
Interesting. So less customer-facing solutions, perhaps some help along the way, but
I think AI is especially, again, I mentioned it before, again, with the TikTok thing, I think from a marketer's perspective, those that are, I think AI is going to be an incredible game changer, because one of the things that Harrison mentioned earlier on is like the creativity, the originality. And I think AI, and we've all, seen what it does, from a social media standpoint. It could be a real game changer, because really from a marketing advertising perspective, you're trying to send out a message, and you want to be seen, you want to be heard, and you want someone to react to that or remember it, right? And in today's day and age, life science marketing, it is what it is, right? But I think those that look at sort of an AI resource and then use that to be creative, innovative, and to stand out, relatively speaking, right? Because you could get crazy with AI, right? It has so many different ways to help. But if I'm a marketer, I would look into that, and I would do a trial and error approach, again, relatively speaking, right? Because I think that the creativity using that is going to be incredible. It's a game changer, I think.
Yeah. I think we all need to recognize as well that AI is stealing your content. You know, let's call it for what it is. That these models have scraped the internet and they're trained. Now, how legal that is, I know there are challenges that are going on through the courts in the States at this moment in time.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of think it's pretty unfair, but it is a thing. So that's why, you know, going forwards, you've got to be thinking about how do we generate something that's unique that AI doesn't know about at the moment, that it hasn't stolen from, you know.
That's a big challenge, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got encyclopedic content that is, you know, what's the density of gold type of question, and you've always answered that question, well, you're probably not going to get traffic these days answering that question, because the AI overview is going to steal that and it's going to be there. I think Rand Fishkin and from Spark Toro, he highlighted a stat a few weeks back that out of every 100 searches in the States that happens, there's only something like 37% of those that go through to a company. The other 63% either result in another search, an abandoned search, or it goes to another Google property. So you've got to be doing really well to stand out these days in that respect.
Yeah. Just staying on the subject of AI for a moment, is there anything in the kind of the sales environment where you think AI can really change up things for people, you know, in the more short, you know, the shorter term, 2025, the next 12 months? I think, you know, 5 years down the line, it's going to be a whole different picture again. Anything in the next year that you think, perhaps Harrison, it could really impact?
I think honestly, anything that you do that requires you searching the internet for something can now be automated in a routine fashion. I think I mentioned this in one of the answers earlier. There's this tool called clay.com. And what you can essentially create customized tables that run series of workflows where potentially AI is a piece of how you run those particular workflows. So I think of something like account research can all be completely automated. You basically just build one simple line item and you're pulling in everything you could possibly want from the internet about that account in 10 seconds versus waiting, you know, doing that manual research yourself. So imagine uploading a list of 100 companies. Now you can go do all your account research on them. You can create an ideal customer profile. You can compare the two against each other and then stack rank all your accounts within like 10 minutes to find out which accounts are going to be the best to focus on. And then from there, now you can go find who the contacts are at those companies. And then further on, use AI as a follow-up to say, I'm going to now go write personalized custom information to these people based on the research that I've done and, you know, their LinkedIn profile as an example, because you can pull that all into AI and have AI analyze that as well. So I think when I think of how AI is really going to change things, it is going to reduce all of the manual types of steps that you have to do that free you up to look at the things that only a human can make inferences about. So if I need to just like get information put in front of me, I can now do that really quickly, make an inference around that, and then use that to go take action. And so what used to take hours of research, finding, building lists, and all of this stuff, like that is all basically could be put on autopilot to where now you, human in the loop, can go and like tweak the last line of things, or last line of defense before something goes out. You can get in there, make your changes as you see fit, and then you're off and running. So I think for top of funnel, it's incredible. Also like mid funnel, so like opportunities that you're already working, is taking if you do record calls, which I hope what people do, because you could take all of those call transcripts and things, you can like write your follow-ups way faster, way more effectively. You can do some of this account research in a middle of the funnel, in a sales funnel, to find out maybe there's new initiatives that have come up that company's talked about that you can reference as part of your opportunity. Because one of the biggest things that we're seeing right now for why sales deals aren't progressing quickly is because a lot of the times we're not aligning our product, solution, et cetera, to some sort of business problem, some sort of business initiative. It's really just sticking at like the technical level with scientists. And so a great way for you to uncover what these sort of business initiatives are is through leveraging tools like AI in the middle of your sales process to go and kind of figure these things out. And then you bring those up in your conversations. So it's like, how do I get all this information to then enhance myself as a human.
So that was going to be my next question. Is there still room for a conversation?
Oh, I think
for now, yeah. For now, yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Harrison's just said then about that automation aspect and the AI aspect in the sales process. I think you're going to find a lot more AI at the top of the funnel where it's pretty much a numbers game, but you can do it really well and make it look pretty human. But I think as you get down towards the bottom of the funnel, I think the people by people mantra still applies.
Yep.
You know, long may it continue. You know, I hate to live in a world where we've just got robots talking to each other. And so I think, yeah, absolutely, there is space for that. But the challenge is, you know, as companies out there, if you're not thinking about multi-agent approaches to how you're doing your business, you're falling behind.
Yes.
I mean, Salesforce with Agentforce, I read the other day they're recruiting another 2,000 people to promote and sell
humans
Agentforce.
to sell
Exactly.
their AI agent software, which I think
What
is
does that tell you? Exactly.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So if we just think about the top of the funnel, the numbers game, somewhere where AI can potentially be incredibly powerful, are there any AI tools that particularly spring to mind that allow for this personalized outreach? Just thinking about, you know, people being able to take away something, have a quick Google and maybe start using something themselves. I think
Clay.com is by far the greatest tool that has been invented in the last 2 years when it comes to any sort of like a AI workflow automation type of things that you can use as a non-coder or a non-engineer. You don't have to be super technical to use it. The way it works is it's basically like a smart spreadsheet, like a spreadsheet. I don't want to say smart sheet because it's not smart sheets, but essentially each different like row is a different, I would call it like you could use like a different company or a different person, whatever. And then each column can be a different form of like enrichment or AI analysis or formula cleanup or go find somebody's email address or go validate an email address or whatever it is. So you can do all of this in like one sheet and basically have like an account research sheet as an example. All you do is put in the LinkedIn profile of that company, and then you could have like 27 different automations run to give you the output that you're looking for at the other end. And so you can really build these like comprehensive workflows that will absolutely like be a game changer for you, your team. Even if you're on the marketing side, like this can be stuff that you push into your CRM to make your sales team's jobs a lot easier. So instead of them having to go find this stuff and they become experts, you can spend the time to do it, push that information into your CRM, and now that can be referenced everywhere, right? So we talked about how do you personalize your email marketing. Well, now you have all of this information that you can use in your email marketing tool too, because it's being fed into your CRM.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that came up in the report that you've published recently around what's going to be really popular in 2025? What's going to work well? Something that can maybe, that has worked well previously, that's going to continue to be a great way to engage with audiences?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything earth-shattering. And actually, just to comment on Harrison's point there, I totally agree with regards to, there are tools out there that will enable you to automate a lot of your processes. We've built our own, and we're looking to commercialize those. And you can actually do that with multi-agent approaches these days. So you don't always have to go outside and buy. You can actually build in that respect. And I would encourage people to look at that, or talk to relevant people about how they can help. Going back to your question about is there anything outstanding that's come out there, my view on it would be that there's nothing that is significantly outstanding that's worth flagging outside of the sort of the topics that we've already talked about. People certainly find challenges still in terms of generating video. Podcasts are increasingly popular, but there's a production challenge there. It's one of those things these days that everybody expects any form of video content or podcast content to be like the BBC or CBS in the States, or you expect high quality professionalism. And if you can't deliver that, I'd probably say don't do it.
Why should people host their podcasts?
I was gonna say I might change it a little bit. Like I see a lot of stuff that's on like organic content, people sitting in their car filming themselves with a selfie, and like some of that content video is really good and gets like tons of reach. So I'd say there's probably a middle ground. It's like go high produced or go lo-fi, but like don't be stuck in the middle where it kind of looks like a half-assed job.
So with a podcast, where two questions, what kind of length should people aim for, and where should they host it? Should they host it on their own websites, or use it as a CTA, download the podcast here, or should they put it on Spotify? I mean, what should people do with it?
Be everywhere. And if you, I would just say, if you can do video, what's cool with podcasts is you can push it to all these channels automatically. If you start with a video podcast first, I think it's better because then you have that content that can be repurposed on social more effectively. If you do an audio podcast and you're not recording it, you get no extra value out of those clips other than the podcast itself, which podcasts are hard as hell to grow. Like they're just hard. And it's basically word of mouth is how they grow. But if you have those video clips that you could put on LinkedIn, Twitter, or, excuse me, X, TikTok, wherever, that is what you can use to then drive people to your podcast. And then I actually have people who have never listened to our podcast as an episode, but say they love our podcast, which I think is funny because they just see the clips that we put on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And they don't actually watch the whole thing.
Right, exactly. No, but it's like it still kind of gets the value because we're putting those clips out there, and so we're getting that awareness.
Yeah, I think you've got to be very choosy about, is there a big enough subject here that is of interest to enough people? And enough people, depending on your subject area, it might be an audience of 200, or it might be an audience of 20,000 that is critical mass for your particular subject area. So it's not for the faint-hearted. If you're going to do podcasting, you've really got to commit to it and follow through on it. But I would agree with Harrison. Build it and distribute many times. Chop it up into bite-sized chunks that you can spread around the social ecosystem.
And
it's really hard to grow them. Really hard to grow them. So if like you're looking at it to be like, oh, I'm going to get millions of downloads, it's probably not. It's setting the wrong expectation. I think about it as like, how can you get something that your top 500 customers or prospects might listen to? If that's the outcome, that's going to be much more valuable than trying to shoot for whatever 1 million downloads.
And then the challenge with podcasts too, again from the publishing perspective, is that we do podcasts from a reader's perspective. They do well, right? Because the content is germane to their research, etc. But the challenge is for a marketer and an advertiser, how do they get involved in that? Like, what is the proper messaging that you would put in a podcast? How do I get my lead? Like, how does give me a tangible ROI on the podcast that we're going to sponsor? And these are all questions that we're interacting with customers today's but we use podcasts, and then we have an integrated package a publisher does where you're not just a podcast, right? We have an email package too, and so you have integrated packages that are utilized again to get the best benefit, the best outcome for advertisers' investment.
So one thing that many podcasters use influencers in their, they'll have a conversation with an influencer, which makes me think about, in B2B marketing, often we will use what's working well in B2C and adapt it for B2B audiences. And influencer marketing is massive in B2C. It's big in B2B, but less so. Do you think that's something that's going to be on the increase this year?
Define influencer, because I don't know if I love the term necessarily, but I think
so an influencer within a scientific world context,
right? I think that would
someone who's doing something pretty game-changing and using some kind of genetic analyzer to look at something differently, or they've got a new application for something. So it's going to be a wonderfully nerdy look at something, a deep dive, an amazing discovery. So it's not going to be someone wearing the latest, new fashion. It's going to be a scientific fashion. It's going to be something new in science, new methodology.
I think it'd be great to see how many spectrometers Kim Kardashian could sell. That would be an interesting. But being vaguely serious for a moment, I think in the scientific context, that thought leader piece does have a lot of value. If you've got Professor X stood next to a piece of equipment in his or her laboratory, and they're talking about the research that they do, oh, and by the way, we use this piece of equipment, that works pretty well. You know, if that person's got credibility. Within your own organizations, one of the things that we often hear is people will say, oh, we know we need to do more content, but we just don't have the time to do it. Well, hang on. You've got lots of qualified people that go to conferences. Why don't we just have a 20-minute interview with them? It's simple, it's quick, it's easy. You generate good value content from that person who really knows their stuff. And and they go to conferences and they publish in the Journal of Hidden Science. And really, where does that go? Let's start bringing it out of those quality people in the organization.
So just going back to the email marketing, because there are quite a few questions around this, and I think it would be really great to know your thoughts. Are there any kind of consensus? Ian, you mentioned a couple of things earlier around the subject lines that make people more likely to open an email. Should it be a question? Should it be a call to action? We've got this great thought leadership podcast that we want everyone to listen to. What do I put in that subject line to optimize the chances of someone opening it?
Yeah, as a scientist, that's an impossible question to answer, because it all comes down to the context of what's your content, what are you trying to achieve with that content, who are you trying to achieve it with. So there's just so many independent variables that, now if you came to us, our email team, and said, I want to do this, I want to influence these people, we would be able to give you answers that say, well, historically, statistically, this type of activity will give you the best result. But it's very hard to give a one-line answer to that one.
Yeah, it varies. That's a tough question. We know the type of subject areas that that content that don't do well, right? If you're promoting a product, et cetera, and it's skewed towards the company, right? It's like those don't do well, right? Et cetera. So I think that's the $64,000 question. What does well, and then in that state, it varies.
So just another question that's come up in the chat about traditional sort of media relations. So obviously running thought leadership type pieces in industry publications is very powerful for a brand. What about press releases? Do editors like receiving them anymore? Do we know?
Oh boy, press releases. Yeah, everyone wants a press release out there. Again, so going back traditionally, that was a big way to interact, right? Get your press release out, et cetera. And the brands, their media brands that did that, and said, okay, but I don't think from my experiences, like researchers, that they're not, as enamored with a press release anymore. With all the different platforms of dissemination of content and ways to consume content and get information about new products, et cetera. A simple press release just doesn't cut the mustard anymore, if you will. But if you take that and you use that and you have an integrated way of communicating, not just a press release, but if you look at the different various other channels, I think that would be a lot more effective.
I think there's there's a spectrum of press releases. The ones that is pretty low quality is Mr. X has got a new job at this company, so limited value, through to we've developed a new form of atomic force microscope that's got a higher resolution level. That's the sort of press release that's got high value and is likely to travel far within the scientific community. So we still process a lot of press releases per day. And that atomic force microscope example, if that goes in a newsletter that's going out to 5 atomic force microscopists,
works well. That works well.
A great connection.
Okay, I think we've got time just for one more question before we wrap up.
That's it? Wait, this is not a 2-hour webinar? It's only 1 hour?
It's an hour.
I've also been doing my best to just go through these text ones on the chat.
Perhaps we'll do round 2 in 6 months' time. I think a mid-year catch-up. So I've got a question. How can sales and marketing teams work more effectively together, collaborate more in 2025?
I know I have limited time. When I saw that question, I chuckled. The first thing I did was
so I think it all comes down to objectives and how teams are measured. If marketing is measured on leads and sales is measured on bookings or revenue, there's always going to be a disconnect because marketing will say, I'm generating leads. Why isn't sales following up? So if you can, at the leadership level, align around something that both groups are focused on, and that becomes the objective and what everybody's driving towards and how everybody is measured and what success looks like, I think that becomes the first step in how people work together, because it doesn't matter if you generate leads if none of them convert. Even if sales is following up, if sales is following up poorly, or there's no teamwork there. If marketing is incentivized to make sure that sales has the best possible leads and they're following up in the best possible way, and marketing is incentivized to also work on like, how do we add additional content and information throughout the sales process and not just pass over a lead? How can we also help drive deals to close? Content, podcasts, newsletters, whatever, this sort of stuff. It creates a better environment. But
yeah, and I agree with that too. And I'm going to say something very simple, but I think it's it's very is proper communication and understanding of each other's needs, right? A publisher, we're in the middle of it, right? So we're in the middle of the marketer and the sales lead, et cetera. And we've just only recently, begun talking to sales managers at companies and did you receive sales leads from your said project, et cetera? And oh, you did, you didn't, what you do with them, how'd you follow up, are they valuable, et cetera? And then the reason why I chuckled is because, oftentimes it's like, okay, well, with the leads that we sent over in our CRM, well, they're not really that good, and then the marketers are like, well, yeah, but they checked off all the boxes on your landing page and they seem like they're going to be buying in 6 months. Nah. So that's why I chuckle. But I think proper communication simply to understand the needs of each other and why we're doing things together, I think is extremely important.
From a sales
Anything to add to that,
perspective,
Ian, before we wrap up?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think we've highlighted an age-old problem, and I think there's always there should be a level of healthy tension there between the two activities. I think as a CEO, one of the challenges is, can we actually show that the ultimate goal for the business is bigger than any individual goals or egos at a specific functional level. So that's trying to get everybody rowing the boat in the same direction is I think there's a leadership issue there.
Absolutely, I agree.
And we've got to work on that aspect.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. So I think just to wrap up, number one, I want to thank you all very, very much. We'll switch the slides in just a sec, but I think that what's come out of this conversation is the fact that, email marketing is here to stay for sure. Use your high value content to draw those audiences to you, get that inbound marketing moving in your direction. Harness AI to help you with that in whatever way you can, but don't rely on it to write that content for you and develop that content for you. And unlock your inner creativity. I think that's a great final message, really. We've all got to think a bit harder about what might work. Yeah, thank you all for your contributions. Adam, would you like to just switch to the final couple of slides? I'd like to mention the SAMPS Awards. If you go on the SAMPS website, you'll see the awards page. And we want to celebrate individuals and companies in sales and marketing in the next couple of months. The nominations close at the end of February. So please have a think about colleagues and companies that you might want to nominate. We've got quite a lot of nominations already, but it's always good to have a bit of competition on. So yeah, we'd like some more names in the hat, please. And I just want to briefly talk about the Innovate and Connect, Mastering Customer Engagement, which is the title for our European SAMPS conference, which is going to be in Cambridge on Thursday, the 3rd of April at Wolfson College, which is one of the university colleges, followed by a dinner in the centre of the city, which should be a really fantastic event. And again, it'll be a day where people can come away with really actionable strategies that they can then go and implement in their own teams, within their own companies, to finesse many aspects of their marketing. Emma White from Oxford Nanopore is our keynote speaker. Her brainchild is London Calling, which many of you will have heard of. And we've also got talks from Caroline Robinson from Sandler, Matt Wilkinson from Scriven, We've also got Alex Rowthorne, who's going to be talking about influencer marketing actually within this scientific space, and we'll be running a workshop as well. So there'll be lots to get involved with, and some, as I say, some really actionable insights. So if you know any SAMPS board members, hint, hint, I'm one of them. We've all got discount codes, so look me up and and I can share it with you.
And just and one big plug to the SLAS reception that SAMPS is hosting in San Diego, I think, at the Spaghetti
Yes, as a
Factory.
networking event.
So
Thank
if everyone, I hope to see everyone there. That should be fun.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. So thank you all very much, and yeah, I look forward to catching up with you all in the next few months. We'll do this again.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a
all
great day,
for
everyone.
contributing
Cheers,
your
folks.
questions.
Bye.
Bye.